You see, one of the most overlooked truths about female desire is that it doesn't start between her legs. It starts between her ears. That's not just a cute metaphor. It's a psychological reality. For most women, emotional foreplay isn't optional. It's essential. It's the beginning of everything. And yet, it's the one thing many men rush past or ignore entirely, thinking the act of intimacy is physical first. But women, especially women who are emotionally mature and sexually experienced, know that physical arousal is deeply rooted in how safe, seen, and connected they feel. Now, emotional foreplay is not about being overly sweet or romantic in a performative way. It's not about flooding her with compliments or asking about her day out of obligation. It's about presence, being genuinely there, mentally and emotionally, with her. When a woman senses that you're not fully present, when you're distracted, disinterested, or going through the motions, her body closes up. Not intentionally, but instinctively. Her nervous system simply won't relax enough to surrender to the experience. This is because, evolutionarily and biologically, a woman's desire is tied to her sense of safety. Safety doesn't mean weakness. It means her ability to trust that she can open herself to you without being left feeling exposed, judged, or disregarded. Let's go deeper. Emotional foreplay is about attunement. It's the way you notice when her tone changes, when her eyes dim slightly, when her smile isn't fully there. It's the way you touch her when there's no promise of sex. It's the hand on her lower back as you walk through a doorway, the way you brush hair from her face while she speaks, or the way you listen to her without the itch to fix everything she says. These small, consistent signals tell her that she is valued, not just desired. And for a woman, being valued is one of the strongest aphrodisiacs. So when I say emotional foreplay is more powerful than physical touch, I mean that quite literally. A woman who feels emotionally stimulated, emotionally held, will crave your physical touch. But if the emotional foundation is weak, even the most skilled hands will fail to unlock her fully. This is why many women speak of not being in the mood. It's not about hormones or timing, it's about the emotional atmosphere you're creating. If it's tense, rushed, or shallow, she will detach. But if it's slow, intentional, and emotionally nourishing, she'll unfold. And gentlemen, don't underestimate the depth of her emotional body. Women are intuitive. They pick up on your energy before you say a word. If your desire for her is rooted only in physical release, she'll know. But if it's rooted in a deeper reverence for her, if you touch her mind before her skin, she will melt in your hands. Desire for a woman is less about intensity and more about consistency. It's less about performance and more about presence. And emotional presence, authentic, steady, and grounded, has the power to unlock desires in her she didn't even know she had. When a man takes time to truly understand this, when he practices the art of emotional foreplay, he elevates himself from simply being a lover to being a man she deeply yearns for. Not occasionally, but repeatedly. So, if you want to stir her body, start with her heart. If you want to awaken her passion, first calm her nervous system. Emotional intimacy isn't an accessory to physical desire, it's the very root of it. Touch her emotionally first, and the rest will follow. Because the truth is, when a woman feels safe, she becomes dangerous in the most beautiful way. Let's talk about confidence, because this is where so many men either fall short or overdo it. And the irony? Both extremes are a turnoff. You see, a woman desires a confident man, not a cocky one. Confidence in its purest form is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't seek the spotlight. And that is exactly what makes it so magnetically attractive. The mistake most men make is confusing arrogance for strength. They believe that being overly assertive, dominant, or loud somehow equates to being a high-value man. But to a woman who has done the inner work, to a woman who knows her worth, that's not power. It's insecurity in disguise. Confidence is not about dominating a room. It's about being grounded in who you are, even when the room ignores you. It's about emotional composure, not emotional performance. Women, especially women with emotional intelligence, are not just looking for a man who walks tall. They're looking for a man who carries his silence with authority, a man who doesn't need to prove himself constantly because he already knows who he is. That kind of confidence communicates something very primal. I'm safe with myself, and I will be safe with you. And for a woman to desire you deeply, she has to trust that emotional safety. Now, let's peel this back a bit more. True confidence also comes from clarity, knowing your values, your boundaries, your purpose. When a man knows what he stands for and refuses to bend for approval, that creates immense respect in a woman. Not because he's being rigid or unfeeling, but because he's not needy. And that's the psychological paradox. Neediness repels desire, while self-sufficiency creates it. But there's more. A confident man knows how to lead without controlling. He creates direction, not domination. He invites, not imposes, and he listens, not because he's unsure, but because he's secure enough to receive input. That balance of strength and softness, of decisiveness and humility is rare, and rare is desirable. Now let me be clear. Confidence is not built in a day. It's not a mask you wear on dates or a script you rehearse to sound impressive. It's an internal state. It comes from keeping your word to yourself, from doing hard things consistently, from knowing your flaws and not apologizing for your existence. It comes from emotional discipline, your ability to stay calm when others lose their center, your ability to handle rejection without collapsing, your ability to love without losing your identity. Women are extremely perceptive to emotional incongruence. If you're trying to appear confident while being emotionally fragile underneath, she will feel it. And not only will she lose interest, she may begin to mother you, or worse, emotionally withdraw. But when she senses your inner solidity, when she realizes you don't need her to validate you, she begins to want to. That's the secret. She wants to give herself to a man who isn't desperate to have her, not because he doesn't care, but because he knows his life has meaning, with or without her. And here's the beauty in all of this. When you embody that level of confidence, you stop chasing women. You start attracting the right ones. Women who are not intimidated by your strength, but inspired by it. Women who are not looking to change you, but to partner with you. So if you really want to activate deep desire in a woman, don't perform masculinity, embody it. Build a life that you're proud of. Cultivate presence, not just personality. Because when you walk into a room and your energy says, I know who I am, you won't need to say much at all. The most seductive thing about a man isn't his looks, his money, or his charm. It's the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to impress because he's already impressed himself. Now let's go deeper into something rarely spoken about openly, yet silently understood by women who've been through enough to know what they truly want. And it's this. Many women crave to be dominated. Not controlled, not demeaned, but led, with intention, with emotional intelligence, and with power that is earned, not forced. You see, dominance in the healthy, mature masculine is not about physical aggression or raising your voice. It's not about being in charge just for the sake of it. It's about creating a structure strong enough for her to let go. Because feminine energy at its core desires to surrender, but only to something or someone that feels stronger than her chaos. And not stronger in ego, but stronger in presence, in awareness, in groundedness. When a woman says she wants a man who can handle her, she's not asking for someone to overpower her. She's asking for someone who doesn't fold when she tests his center. Because yes, she will test it, not to break you, but to feel you. To see if you're real, to see if she can trust you, to lead not just in the bedroom, but in the emotional and psychological terrain of intimacy. But here's the key. That surrender only happens when she feels safe. Emotional safety is the gatekeeper to her wildest desires. If she senses that your need to dominate comes from insecurity, control issues, or suppressed rage, she will shut down. Instinctively, her body will not respond. But if your leadership is coming from clarity, self-mastery, and deep respect for her being, then she will open. Fully, passionately, even ferociously. The kind of dominance she craves isn't about power over her, it's about power with her. A co-creative dynamic where your masculine presence provides the container for her feminine expression to pour out freely. It's raw, yes, but it's sacred. It's not a performance, it's a polarity. So the question isn't, how do I dominate her? The real question is, have I done the inner work to become the kind of man a powerful woman would want to surrender to? Because the truth is, she will only give you her body when you've proven she can trust you with her soul. If you really want to understand female desire, you have to understand this simple truth. A woman's greatest erogenous zone is her mind, not her body, not the physical. It begins in her imagination, her thoughts, the emotional tension that slowly builds long before a single hand is laid on her. And that's where so many men go wrong. They focus on the body, thinking it's a mechanical system. Press this button, pull that lever, get a response. But the female body doesn't respond to routine. It responds to presence, and even more powerfully, to mental stimulation. Mental stimulation isn't about being overly intellectual or quoting philosophers. It's about knowing how to spark her curiosity, how to make her think and feel in ways she didn't expect. It's about unpredictability, subtle challenge, and layers of depth that invite her to engage with more than just your physical self. It's the ability to carry a conversation that dances between humor and intellect, flirtation and philosophy. When you stimulate her mentally, you invite her into a world that feels alive, magnetic, and uniquely yours. And I want you to really hear this. A woman cannot fully open to a man who bores her. No matter how attractive you are, if your conversation is dull, predictable, or overly goal-oriented, she'll disengage, not to be rude, but because her desire is no longer being fed. You've shut down the gateway to her passion, the mind. And remember, for her, arousal is not linear, it's layered. She feels turned on when her imagination is activated, when her emotional curiosity is stirred, when your energy tells her, there's something here worth exploring. Voice tone matters. Pace matters. Now, if you add this to the mystery of the voice mastery, the way you look at her when she speaks, the way you hold a pause instead of rushing to fill silence, it all contributes to the atmosphere of attraction. Most men think foreplay begins with a kiss. No. For her, it begins when you walk into the room and say something that makes her raise her eyebrow, something that hints at depth, at danger, at mystery. And that mystery doesn't mean being evasive or cold. It means having layers that unfold slowly. When a woman feels there's more to you than what's on the surface, she leans in. And leaning in is the first step toward desire. Now, this isn't about manipulation. You don't stimulate her mind just to get into her bed. You stimulate her mind because you respect the complexity of her being. You acknowledge that she is more than her body. She is a psychological, emotional, spiritual experience. And when you engage all three, she doesn't just desire you, she remembers you. You stay with her, in her thoughts, in her body, long after the conversation ends. That's the kind of impact you want to have. Not because you're trying to impress, but because you're showing up as a whole man. Not just physically present, but mentally awake, emotionally intelligent. A man who doesn't just want to take something from her, but wants to meet her at her depth. And that, more than anything, turns her on. Because for a woman, being desired is not about being stared at. It's about being understood. It's not about a man who wants her body. It's about a man who understands her mind and still chooses to pursue her body with reverence. So ask yourself, not just what can I say to get her attention, but what energy am I carrying that makes her mind linger on me even when I'm gone? Because when you touch her mind, her body will always follow. Let me tell you something that most men never consider, but every experienced woman longs for. She wants you to know her body better than she does. And no, I don't mean memorizing positions or watching more explicit content online. That's not intimacy. That's choreography. What I'm talking about is presence. I'm talking about a level of attention so sharp, so intuitive, that you begin to read her body like a language, one that's always changing, moment to moment. You see, a woman's body isn't a machine. It doesn't respond the same way every time, and it definitely doesn't respond on demand. Her desire is dynamic. It shifts based on her emotions, her hormones, her energy, and, most importantly, how safe and seen she feels in your presence. So if you want to truly please her, to awaken her desire, you have to become an expert listener. But not just with your ears, with your hands, your eyes, your breath, your timing. Her body is speaking to you constantly. Most men just don't know how to listen. This isn't about pressure. It's about awareness. It's about slowing down and noticing. The way her breath changes when you touch her here versus there. The way her back arches slightly or doesn't. The subtle gasp, the slight withdrawal, the tension in her thighs. These are signals, not tests, not challenges, but invitations, clues to her unique rhythm and what she's actually feeling, not what she's pretending to feel to keep your ego intact. And here's where the real wisdom comes in. An experienced woman has spent enough time with herself to know what her body needs. So when she allows you in, when she lets you explore, guide, lead, she's hoping you'll meet her at that same level of self-awareness. She's not impressed by technique alone. What moves her, what opens her, is your ability to tune in, to notice the nuance, to ask without words, and to receive without rushing. This is why presence beats performance every single time. Performance is about proving something. Presence is about being with her, fully, attentively, and without expectation. And that presence creates the emotional container her body needs to let go, to feel, to trust. Because when she knows you're not just touching her to get somewhere, but because you're actually with her, experiencing, sensing, exploring, then she can surrender. And that surrender, when it's genuine, is unlike anything physical alone can create. Understand this. To a woman, being deeply touched is not just physical stimulation. It's recognition. It's confirmation that you care enough to notice what no one else has, that you see her, not as an object of pleasure, but as a landscape of emotion, energy, and complexity. And yes, it takes patience. Yes, it takes humility. But that's what separates a man who gets access to her body from a man who is remembered by it. So the question you need to ask isn't, did I please her? The real question is, did I pay enough attention to know what pleased her? Because the answers aren't in technique. They're in her reactions, her silences, her rhythm. They're in the space between her words. And only the man who chooses to be fully present in those spaces will ever truly know her. A woman never forgets the man who made her feel like her body was being read, not just touched. Here's something most men completely underestimate: the importance of what happens after intimacy. You see, for women, the experience doesn't end with climax. In fact, that's often when the emotional processing begins. And what she feels in those moments, those quiet, vulnerable seconds afterward, can either deepen her connection to you or silently push her away. Validation after intimacy is not about dramatic displays of affection or long speeches. It's often subtle. Eye contact that lingers, a reassuring touch, a few intentional words that say, "You're safe, you're valued, I'm still here." That post-intimate energy speaks volumes. It tells her whether the experience was mutual or merely transactional. And trust me, a woman always feels the difference. This is because, biologically and emotionally, women often experience a surge of vulnerability right after physical closeness. Her body opens, her heart softens, and her nervous system, if the intimacy was meaningful, begins to relax into connection. But if she's met with coldness, distance, or indifference, that same softness turns into regret, or worse, emotional withdrawal. When a woman gives herself to a man, especially one she trusts, she's not just sharing her body. She's giving you access to a very sacred part of herself that needs to be held with care, not fragility, but intentionality. You don't have to smother her. You just have to be there, fully present, fully available. That's what makes her feel safe to go deeper the next time. And this is the irony. Many men chase physical intimacy, but sabotage the very connection that would make it recurring or even transcendent. They don't realize that it's what you do after that leaves the most lasting impression. It's what she remembers. It's what tells her whether the entire experience was about her or just about you. So if you want her to crave not just your body, but your presence, validate her afterward. Stay, speak, hold space. Because in doing so, you're not just sealing the moment, you're opening the door to deeper, more powerful intimacy moving forward. Any man can make her body react, but only a man who stays emotionally, mentally, spiritually, makes her heart respond.